Hello, Kristen. Shh, we can cut the music. Yeah, we need the bell, the Jack Miller bell, the Peggy Zurcher bell. Where is Peggy? Is Peggy in the room? All right, okay. Tell her I was asking. Okay, you guys ready to roll? How many of you guys met some new people during break? All right. You think you can do it again during lunch? Dealmaker challenge? Is Eddie here? Do you see Eddie? Oh, okay, good. Okay, come on up, Jeff. How many of you guys know Jeff Watson? My friend. Nothing else matters as far as titles, does it? You're going to get a lot of Jeff with Boaz a little later in Dealmaker. All right, guys, listen up. Shh. Jeff Watson has a word.
It is my privilege in a couple minutes to welcome a dear friend to stage. And as I bring him up on stage, I just want to mention that there are 3 men in this room that have impacted my life as a real estate investor. 3 men. Jim Ingersoll, Quincy Long, and then Mr. Eddie Speed. Now let me tell you a little bit about Eddie Speed. I thought I was pretty hot stuff because I got very popular with doing the option contract method for short sales. Then one day, I'm at a training in Denver, Colorado of all places, and Mr. Eddie Speed is speaking. And about halfway through the first day, I said to myself, "Self, you will never again do another short sale. Why do you want to be the little boy begging for a little more gruel in your tin cup when you can learn how to be the bank controlling the deal?" So that was a very formative moment in my life with Eddie Speed. Now, I'm going to tell you something else that you probably know. This is not your grandfather or your grandmother's or your mom and dad's real estate market. How many of you would agree that things have changed in the last couple of years? Some of y'all are like me and you're landlords, and some of deals now, your math ain't mathin'. You know what I mean? The county tax man has taken more money from you than ever before. The insurance companies are taking more money from you before. Contractors, materials, supplies, etc. So now you've got to look at it and say, if my math ain't mathin' and my calculator ain't broken, maybe something else is broken. So with that being said, there's a guy that's going to come up on stage now. His name is Mr. Eddie Speed. He's a friend, he's a client, but most of all, he is a dynamic speaker, teacher, and trainer. So please, Mr. Eddie Speed, come on up here as I tell everybody to give them your full focus and attention.
Thank you. Love you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. I'm going to leave this right here.
I'm so glad to be here. I've known so many of you in the room a long time. Jim invited me to speak a couple of times, and it was just kind of crazy timing of a family event or something that I couldn't come. And this is actually my first time to be at Dealmaker, so I'm that guy that raised his hand, and I'm glad to be here. I'm going to warn you guys. For some of you, I'm going to sound a little contrarian. And I don't mean to sound contrarian. I'm just challenging our belief system a little bit, right? For some of you, you've already made your mind up in advance, right? And we're going to be friends, right? But for some of you, the market has changed, and you're wondering if the model you're doing is the model that you started with, or has the cheese been moved, right? So I'm going to do 2 things first. I'm going to do a little bit of a kind of a challenge, and I'm going to challenge rentals versus notes on the same property. And then I'm going to talk about how to make good notes, right? I bought 50,000 seller finance notes. That would be probably an industry record, right? You know how I bought 50,000 seller finance notes? Is I taught people how to create seller financing like they're a mortgage banker. Not homemade, right? And so I'm going to talk about that formula because at the end, I'm going to say that if we can help you with those notes, I'm going to give you a path that we can do it, and do it in a way where you could sell a piece of the note or a part of the payment. In various ways you can do this and keep the same income that you might be keeping on a rental, but do it in a different way. Okay? So, y'all heard my attorney speak, Dr. Watson? Huh? So he makes me put this disclaimer in there. He says, Eddie, you're not a lawyer, and he's right. I'm not an accountant, and I don't play one on TV. So I'm only, even though I've paid for millions of dollars worth of advice, they say I can't do it. No, I don't want to do it. So this is a disclaimer. This is just for educational purposes. And so we're going to talk about sticky notes. Not exactly these kind, though, right? We're going to talk about real estate notes. All right, so here's the challenge. What is the return of this asset? And I want you to kind of play this back to yourself on the rental property that you have. Here's a rental property in Dallas, Texas, and it rents for $1,800, and it's worth $250,000. What if you looked at that asset differently than how you've been looking at it? What if you looked at this asset and said, what if I seller financed it? So, I call it the great battle. The great battle between rentals versus notes. I started in this industry in 1980. This is my 6th real estate cycle, right? Not every cycle is the same. In fact, most cycles have a lot of different things, and some cycles have things that are similar. Jeff will assure you I've been calling the ball on this for more than 2 years. This is not a shocker to me. It's not like it just creeped up on us in the last 3 months. It's just that people's feelings are different than they were 2 years ago when I first started kind of talking and making this argument. Now I have a lot of top-level fractional CFOs for top-level real estate investor groups and masterminds that are sending their clients to me to go solve this problem. That's the people that run their numbers every day, right? I have more large clients doing this than I can quite believe. I've been told in the past, couple of months, Eddie, this run is going to be the best your career's ever seen. And I kind of think it could be true. It's just math. It's not emotion. So the other day, I won a prize. I won the wrestling belt at Collective Genius because I presented on this very topic. Rentals, a room full of real estate investors, not note people. A room full of real estate investors thought this was worthy of seeing. So here's the house. What's the yield? Right? Well, as a rental, it's worth $250,000. It's making a 4.5 cap. We run modeling every day, and in fact, we have a spreadsheet we'll be happy to send you to compare notes and rentals on your assets. And we see it range anywhere from 3% to in the high 4s. We almost never see it break 5. So I didn't pick the most extreme example. I picked an example that's a little bit in the favor of rentals. Most average about 4%. But on a note transaction, you can make 11 on the same deal. A 4.5 cap or an 11 cap. Just change the use of the asset. So on a rental, here's some fairly easy math that you could look at. Income has increased about 20%. So one of the things that I will tell you is I saw this ball coming really, really well. I saw this ball coming, and this basically said to me that rents are not going to match other variables with inflation. So your house doubled in value, but the rents didn't double. But let me tell you what happened. Expenses went up across the country about 50%. So if the rent went up by 20% and expenses went up by 50%, that means that you were making more money on your rental in 2019 than you're making today. Now, listen, there's micro markets all over this room, and so I don't want to debate about your story on that one property. I teach the biggest hotshot real estate investors in the United States how to do notes, and their CFOs tell me my math is good. So I think, generally speaking, this is not any overstatement. I don't need to overstate it. What if expenses only went up by 40%? That's still double. It's just math. So, if I take the asset value of that house and it makes $10,800 net income, I say divide over 3 years, not 3 months. If that's the NOI, then that house is earning a 4.3 cap. That's what this house is making. Challenge your own rentals on your own math. I'm pretty sure I know how it's going to come out. I hate to do it for people all the time, right? And we'll give you some tools and some things to work with it at the end. So let's look at how this works. Let's seller finance this house. $250,000. Statistically, I will tell you with 1,000% integrity, I believe you can sell it to a good buyer and get 15% cash down. You have to market it the right way. You have to say the right things. You have to position it in the right way. Anybody know what the average down payment is on a conventional loan today? Anybody have a clue? What is it? Yell out. 5%? It's 19%. Yeah. That's the average down payment on a conventional mortgage. You know, they keep stats on that. So if you did 15% down, then basically you're creating a non-qualified mortgage. 40% of the loan origination business today are non-QM loans. That's 40% of the market. So you would write that at 10.5, which is an average non-QM loan. And your payment would be $1,943 a month. All right, so let's compare that. Let's take that same math and let's lay it up against the rental on the same property. So here's the comparison. We're going to fill in the blanks. $1,800 rent, $1,943 in payments. By the way, most of this models out that your payment is about $500 more than your rent. So I didn't go pick the best example I've got. Trust me, I don't need to. 50% of your money goes out the door in expenses. That's what the stats tell us. And so you're going to lose $900 of your rent in overhead. How much goes out for a note? You can make the servicer pay the borrower pay the servicing cost. You can net 100 cents on the dollar. So your net income on a rent is $900. Your net income on a note is $1,943. That is $1,043 more money than a rental. Now, Jeff and Jim have already warned me there may be a contrarian in the room. And so, what is somebody thinking? Yeah, Eddie, but if I own or finance, I don't get appreciation. Right? Well, let's just beat it up with some math. You look at this and you say, what if I'm looking at a house that I invested now only $212,000 in because I got part of my money back and I'm earning an 11 cap versus the rental that I'm earning a 4.3 cap on the same asset. So my cash position is drastically higher. I probably am close to the only person in this room that has ever physically worn out about 4 HP 12C calculators. I'm talking about where the buttons won't work. I've spent the last 45 years of my life running present value of future dollars. It matters. It's real math. So if you're looking at this is a 2.5 times return of seller financing the same property that you rent. So let's go back and go to our math and let's look at our gain, our additional money. Not all the money you get, additional money that you get noting it versus renting it. That's $1,043 a month. So let's lay out a timeline. When do I get this money? Present value versus what? Future dollars, right? And so if I lay out 30 years, I get 37.5. I get to take that off the table today, right? And I get a year after year after year of about $12,500 more money. And by the way, on a $250,000 asset, that's 5 points. That's 5%, right? So the first year, I get $50,016 more money. More money. In 5 years, it's $100,080. And over 30 years, it's $412,980. Call it $413,000. Not just money, but what? More money. Now let's talk about time value of money. Everybody intuitively understands something about the time value of money. Everybody in this room intuitively understands if I offered you $1 today or $2 in 10 years, you intuitively have some kind of clock in your head that says, I'll take the money today because I can do more with it. So we intuitively have something inside us. But you know, there actually is a mathematical formula. Right? And so a financial calculator calculates this. Excel, of course, has basically the same ingredients. So I just took an Excel chart that we use all the time, and I laid this up, and I said there's present versus future dollars. And when you get paid is just as important as what you get paid. Does that make sense? This is Excel. So what I did is I said, what is $1,000 worth based on when you get it? So if you have $1,000 and you get it today, what's it worth? If you get it right now, if you get it today, what's it worth? Say it's $1,000. By the way, Excel says that. But if you, this is at an 8% rate, by the way. So if I did a more extreme rate, like 10 or 12, the numbers would be more discounted. So I used a very modest rate to calculate this. If you get the money in 5 years, it's worth 60 cents on the dollar. If you get the money in 10 years, see, the microphone even blew up over that. If you get the money in 10 years, it's 38 cents on the dollar. If you get the money in 20 years, it's worth 15 cents on the dollar. Got any engineers in the room? Got any math people? Am I right? Is my math right? I'm right. You see, it's just math. It's not emotion. We've entered a note cycle. It's more profitable today to have a note than it is a rental. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. And by the way, all those fractional CFOs that have dozens and hundreds of clients, that have some of the biggest residential rental portfolios in the country, they agree with me. They're running their math and they're saying, your rental is seriously underperforming. That's what they're telling them. Now, I'm not saying that everybody in the room sells every rental they've got. I'm not trying to be crazy extreme with you. But a lot of you in the room have a decision to make on some assets that you own that you may not have considered And maybe this prompts you to do it. So, I get to tell these guys and all these different masterminds kind of this same thing. I'm a specialist. I started in 1980. This is my 45th year in the business. I don't know a 50th of what you guys know about rental properties. I'm going to tell you that right now. But I'm a note specialist. But what I do know is what a note is worth. And how did I buy 50,000 notes? Because I built a system that real estate investors followed to make notes to a formula. So if I could beg you to do one thing, don't listen to the local RIA guy telling you how to make your note, because he's never sold 50,000 notes and he doesn't know what the market is. That's what I know. See, I know how to make a note so good that a bank or an insurance company wants to buy it. And that means a much lower yield. So if you could sell a part of a note, call 70% of the payment at a 9% yield, and you did a 10.5% note, you could get 80% of the principal amount of the note and keep 30% of the payment. Huh? But if you write it on a land contract, or you do a bunch of self-imposed underwriting, you just shot yourself in the head, because it won't trade in the secondary market that I'm talking about. So let's talk about how to make good notes. So, what values a note? Well, Wild West makes great movies, but it sucks for seller financing. And most people do Wild West seller financing. Underwriting, paperwork, compliance, like Jeff. If I've bought 50,000 notes, Lord, I've looked at 400,000, and I know about a whole bunch of ways not to do it. I've got a very good customer right now that has a $20 million portfolio that he wants me to go trade, and they wrote 80% of them on land contracts. That dings the price over 10%. I'm sorry. Insurance companies say, no, we can't buy it. Most of the banks say, no, we can't buy it. So I'm just saying that if you're creating value, paperwork matters. But this is more than paperwork. This is where we shine. So I kind of represent two things today, right? I own a note buying business that we're a very active note buying company, Colonial Funding Group. We would like to buy 2,000 notes this year. We're in the note buying business. So yes, I have a school, but I didn't just come here as some guru teaching you how to do it. If I'm anything, I'm a duru. Right? I do have note school, and I've got, if those of you that want to go learn more about buying notes, and I can tell you a lot of good advantages. That's not what I'm talking about today. But if we can help you with that, I've got a little master class you can sign up for, and I'll tell you about here at the end. It's on your table. It's got a little QR code, and you can register for it. But I also want to say, if you just want me, you don't care anything about note buying or note modeling. You don't care anything about that. You just say that I'm interested in looking at my rental portfolio, and you want to know how to make the best notes. I'm going to give you a way at the end for us to help you with that structure and with that underwriting and with that process. And if I could end up buying notes from you, that'd be awesome. There's 6 characteristics that influence the value of a note. Number 1 is the person that owes the money. It is called a note, which means it is a promise to pay. Who promises to pay matters. Secondly, the collateral. I don't buy notes on crap property, period. I don't buy notes on sand lots or swamp lots. I don't buy notes on ghetto properties. You can call some other note buyer. It won't model. I've already run the experiment a lot. The third thing is the buyer's equity. The fourth thing are the terms of the loan. So what the rate is and how long it's payable over and all of those variables. The fifth thing is the pay history. And the question people ask me every day of the week is, how long does a note have to be seasoned before you can buy it? And the answer is, you create the right note, I'll buy it when the ink's wet. I'll buy a brand new note, just like you're a mortgage banker, if you create the right note. If you create a note with flaws in it, that's why pay history matters. So with the 3-year pay history, in lieu of its sins, I can then still buy it. But if you create the right note, you don't have to season it. The last thing is the paperwork. Those 6 characteristics, and looking at 400,000 notes, this is what is in a note buyer's mind. Now, this may not be Granny with 200 grand to invest. They may not know these rules. They may not know this. But if you're me, and I'm talking to insurance companies or Wall Street level players or family offices, this is the conversation that drives what notes trade for. That's my unique expertise. So, sticky notes, not these kind of notes. Notes that'll pay. If you're going to keep a part of the payment, don't you want me to help you create notes that will pay? Isn't that how you get paid? So we're not talking about these kind of notes. We're talking about good notes. So I started this process with a guy named Ken D'Angelo. I bought some notes from him in the 1980s. He and his brother had a real estate investing business in Dallas. And I bought real estate notes from him, and he called me around 1990, and he says, I'm going to build a franchise to teach people how to buy houses, and I have to have a note system, and you're my guy. So I started out with a guy that had a franchise. So guess what you do when you have a franchise? You got to tell them how to make a hamburger. And you got to tell them the exact ingredients, and that hamburger has to taste the same every time. Is that right? So guess what? I did this for notes, what most people did making hamburgers. So we started out with a blank sheet of paper, and this guy took me kicking and screaming into a world that I didn't want to go into, which was defining every intricate part of a note before it was ever made. Now I look back, and it was just called an underwriting box. Right? And so what I did was took my brain for what notes will trade for, and he helped me put it on paper, and I give him a lot of credit for this. By the way, this guy's been dead over 20 years, and whatever you love or don't love about Homevestors today, this guy was a rock star. He was terrific, and he loved people, and that idea, of course, became super contagious. But I got to be his note guy. So I started that in 1990. I simply gave them a recipe for making hamburgers that taste the same every time. So, let's talk about underwriting. Let's talk about qualifying the buyer, okay? So, first of all, you have to document their income. If you have undocumented income, you just put a big minus in front of what your note is worth. Generally speaking, it's usually, ratios need to be about 35 and 45. Right? You don't want to go sell a property to somebody that can't pay for it. Right? And everybody that's all excited when they want to buy something gets over optimistic as what they can afford. So, you have to verify the debt to income ratio. Dodd-Frank, Dr. Watson, requires this. It's not just a good idea. It's actually the law. Credit matters. Credit is how you pay other people back. It's your report card. If you pay other people bad, you got a bad report card. If you pay other people good, you get a good report card. You don't have to have an 800 credit score to do this. But, you know, the old deal of people call me all the time with that 700 credit score. Y'all know that 700, right? Mister's got a 350 and Mrs. has a 350. Y'all seen that credit report, hadn't you? Yeah, I've been there. Job stability. And basically, let me just tell you this. I have coached more people of how to make more volumes of notes than I'm fairly sure anybody in the country. Not the guy that did 1 or 2, but the guys that did hundreds or thousands. And for the first 15 or 20 years, I told people the wrong information. And I wish I could take it back, because I told them to put seller financing in the ad. But what I found out, that seller financing in the ad to the buyer means non-qualifying loan. Don't put seller financing in the ad. Take a picture of that. That's your ad. And you can test it, but I've already tested it over about 100,000 assets. This will produce a level of a buyer that is a much different buyer than normal, right? So once again, I'm just trying to bring you the result of stuff we've already tried, because we've already tried all the other stuff, right? And I've seen people do the crazy stuff of no bank qualifying. Let me think about this. I'm reading the newspaper, and it says a property's for sale, and it says no credit, bad credit, no problem. Or it says no bank qualifying. Who calls on that ad? A bum. Even if you put seller financing in there, you're subliminally saying to the borrower that has no more information than that, you don't have to qualify. So we figured this out one little word at a time, and so now this is what I teach. Property saleability. Okay? The most valuable notes are going to be on stick-built houses. Not mobile home and land, not land, which I have a lot of experience in, and I buy a lot of those notes. But the most valuable notes are going to be on stick-built houses. That's because it fits the insurance company's guidelines. They can't be ghetto properties. In fact, we use a system that many of you may be aware of called RentFax. So there's a system and a process to quantify it. Fannie Mae calls it a C3 house. It has to be a C3 if you're familiar with that. So that's the level that the house has to be. Believe me, that's got a lot of forgiveness in it. So the other thing is it needs to be escrowed. So you need to have an escrow of taxes and insurance. This can be on various property types, and I bought notes a lot on all of these asset classes. About 35% of the notes I buy today are either on mobile home and land or on land only, right? So I'm very familiar with it. Here's the thing, is the property not bankable? And the question is, if it's not bankable, why is it not bankable? Can a realtor sell it? What happens if we have to foreclose on it and all of a sudden we got to go hire a realtor to sell it? That matters. Here's a great question. Can the buyer fulfill their dreams on this property? You sell somebody one of those sand lots out in Arizona like the land gurus tell you to go do, that you can't ever drill a well on it, you can't ever have electricity on it, you can't ever have a septic system on it. Let me ask you a question. What are they going to do? Play in the sand. And so that's not good business, and I don't teach that. Now, I'm not saying every land guru is teaching that exact model, but it is fairly commonly taught. Because you can buy these worthless lots for nothing, because you can drop mail to them, and there's nobody else they've ever met that wanted to go buy it. So you can buy it for a few $100, and that's about what it's worth, right? And so there's a lot to be said about this. I do not believe in selling a poor person a house they can't afford to fix. It just doesn't model. So skin in the game. Believe it or not, it's not as tough as you think. About 10% down is the minimum, and I tell people you can average getting 15% down. 15% down is better for you. I can live with anything, but I can live with anything probably 10% or better. So it's not as tough as you think. And we do, and you can account for appreciated equity. So if you're converting a lease option or you're doing something like that, there can be a way that that could work. Okay? Let me ask you a question. Can that buyer sell the property if they need to sell it? If something happens in their lives, divorce, death, job, all those things, right? Can they sell it? Or do they own something that there's no way in the world they could know how to go in the marketplace and resell it? So these are just kind of good thought processes and how you look at underwriting. So the correct terms of sale, the percentage down, the interest rates, all of those things, those structures, one of the ways you can do it, and don't just write this as the Bible, but one of the ways you can do it is do what we call split loans. 80% first, 10% second, and 10% down. That is a way to do it. And that fits some models. And that's a way to do it. The other way you can do it is you can also sell a piece of the note, 100% of the payment for a designated term, or you can sell percentage of the payment over the life of the loan. So you could sell 60% of the monthly payment and keep 40%, whatever that math wants to be. There's various ways to do it. And it's going to take a little more knowledge with you to get you to where you have a sense of like how you would want to do it. We don't tell you, we can buy notes that fit all of these categories, but some of them are going to have a different economic engine than others. So some of them are going to be more advantageous than others. Let's talk about what happens, though, as an example, when you do a loan that's too high of a loan to value. So let's just say that you sell or finance a property, and you do it at 90%, and you get 10% down. And let's say that you got a collateral type like mobile home and land, and 10% is not really the strong number you need. And so we come in then and say, well, the secondary market says we're probably going to max out about 65%, or that could be true on land. You see the difference between the left and the right? That either equals discount or you got to wait for your money over time. So these are engines that drive how we look at pricing a note. I'm not going to leave you with this puzzle without a way to get to the answer. Trust me, just be patient with me. I'm going to leave you with a structure that we can help you with so that you can figure out what you should do on your deal. Pay history. Pay history only matters if really poor credit is a big factor. Otherwise, if they have perfect credit, I don't need to see a pay history, right? Pay history matters really when really it's a weak buyer or sometimes in some case a weak collateral. Now, I won't buy a note on a junky piece of property. I don't care if they paid for 5 years. I don't buy notes on sand lots anymore. Anybody want to go to Dolan Springs, Arizona, baby? I got 80 beautiful tracts of land that you would love. You can play in the sand all day long. Yeah. You know, they say experience is what you get when you're expecting something else. So third party versus self-service. So you're going to be way better off to have a loan boarded with a servicer than self-service. If you know what the laws are in your state and you're not going to sell paper, it's okay for you to self-service if you know what the laws are in your state. Okay? Most states require some kind of registration or license to service loans. So don't be naive. And by the way, your real estate lawyer likely knows nothing about compliance. Dr. Watson, your real estate lawyer knows nothing about compliance law. So don't ask your real estate lawyer about Dodd-Frank and servicing because they don't know a flipping thing about it. It's not the law they practice. Because I get told every day, oh, I check with my lawyer. I got a guy that talks to me a couple of days ago that is fixing to sell a property in New Hampshire. And he says, I'm seller financing it. I said, New Hampshire has a really weird law. And he says, no kidding? I said, no kidding. You need a banker's license in New Hampshire to owner finance. And he said, well, I asked my attorney. And I said, your attorney doesn't know flip about compliance. I said, let me hook you up with a compliance lawyer. And he called me back and he says, you were right. Lucky guess. So poor credit means that if after the loan is seasoned for a while there's a 20% chance of default in the first couple of years, the chance of default drops off. And so I'm willing to buy it when there's less of a chance of default. Now, by the way, the loans I'm going to help you make don't have a high chance of default, 2 or 3%. This loan will always have a higher chance of default. No matter how seasoned it is, it will have a higher chance of default than somebody with better credit and better qualifications. But there is a tolerance that we can buy it. All right, paperwork. I want to come here and help you guys. I don't want to debate. But I'm going to tell you that the information that is given to people about land contracts is generally obsolete information. Because most states' laws have changed with very few exceptions, and the buyer now has an equitable interest in the property. And because they have an equitable interest in the property, you can't evict that. You have to foreclose that. So you're not sidestepping foreclosure. By the way, I probably am the only guy in the room that's bought 10,000 land contracts in the last 10 years. So I'm fairly familiar probably with your state's laws when it comes to land contracts. And once again, I deal with compliance lawyers. I don't deal with regular lawyers that don't actually know compliance law. It's a different area that they learn. That's why Jeff has had to go help us with compliance attorneys where people say, yeah, it's land contract and it's this and that. And we're like, no, we find out that's what isn't actually true. So we've just been down the road with it. So I like to write for you to make a deal that looks just like Fannie Freddie. I'll help you make documents. You're going to look just like a mortgage banker. Fannie Freddie docs, you're going to look like a mortgage banker. Don't look homemade. It's not cute in the secondary market. So you can write them on land contracts. And if you have land contracts, I'm not saying I can't buy them. But I'm saying to you that they won't have the same trade value that other loans have. So I buy a lot of legacy portfolios. People have land contracts. I got a big customer right now, as I mentioned to you. I see them every day. So it's not, I'm saying we won't buy them at all. It does have a discount in it. Dodd-Frank compliant. Jeff and I did not make the law. We're just trying to get it changed. And we've got 10 years and a lot of money and a lot of time tied up in trying to get Dodd-Frank changed. And this year is probably our year to do it. But it is what it is. And so you need to be compliant, and I will help you with a legitimate RMLO in your market. Just because they say they're a residential mortgage loan originator doesn't mean they do legitimate work. I buy people's loans every day, so guess what I get to see? The RMLO's handiwork. And my due diligence department, who is very knowledgeable about Dodd-Frank, comes back and says they're not compliant. So just because they have a license and they say they do it, well, let's say contractors. Are all contractors equal? Okay, well then all RMLOs aren't equal. So those really matter, and obviously they need to be escrowed. That really matters. And so let's look at it like this. I want you to look like this. And I can show you how to look like it. It's not hard. I can connect you with all the vendors that you need to make this happen. Right? Because when you do this and you write it on standardized documentation, you allow the price of the note to be better. Look, just think about it in anything you know in life. So everybody always asks me, what's the yield? What's the yield? What's the yield, Eddie? Well, the yield depends on how good of a note you write. That's what the yield is. How much is a note discounted? How good's the note? Right? That's how did I buy 50,000 notes? Not because I have a terrible price. But I had to go work backwards and help them manufacture the notes so that they came to the marketplace with a note that would work. And by the way, that doesn't mean that you can't keep future payments. There's ways to structure that to make that happen. So basically there's banks and hedge funds and insurance companies, and they'll buy at a lower yield. It just has to be structured the right way. And then there's private capital, and I deal with everything from a whole boatload of students to, family offices and whatever. So once again, it's just all a matter of what that is. The riskier the deal means I've got to go to a more active investor. And the more active investor has a bigger hand. Y'all know what that means? They want more money to fill it up, which means it has a higher discount. So, who's running your bakery? So the most valuable notes is pretty simple formula. It's good properties to qualified buyers, to correct terms of sale, you're papering it the right way, you're running the right advertising, and this is what I believe. This formula is literally no more complicated than this. But it definitely will change the secondary market of how your notes are priced. All right, so let's talk about how Mike can help you. So the best combination is to seller finance, but understand I'm helping you be a mortgage bank. Don't be scared, right? They just have a formula. They just have a system. They just have an underwriting box. And we can help you with all the things to do it. I've helped people create tens of thousands of notes with this same formula, right? So, be honest with you, not all cars are the same. And yes, I've had people show up more times than I care to mention with a note package that looked like the car on the left, right? And they were so proud of themselves, and they don't realize that that note that they created is not tradable at all or not tradable at a good price, and it's just because they just didn't have the clarity of how to do it differently. And I've learned that you can't follow the myths of real estate investors that are going to teach you how to do this because they don't have the experience with the other side of the fence, which is how do you trade notes in the secondary market. Now, this is an example of how we're going to help you. We're going to give you an underwriting box. We're going to tell you specifically how to structure loans in a way. You don't need to write this down because I'm going to give you a whole thing on how to do this. Okay? The RMLO should verify income and employment. Here's how you get it. That QR code, or you can go to the one at the bottom. This is my note buying company. This is not Note School. This is just a formula that we can help you with an underwriting box, and we can continue to give you details about how to make the best notes. I'm going to go back to it here in a minute if you missed it. Now I'm going to give you a second resource, if I can. We're also very good at teaching people how to buy notes. We're very good. People say, why do people like notes? You make more income than rentals, you have way less aggravation than rentals, and you have a cushion factor you don't have with rentals. More money, less aggravation, and a more cushion if something goes wrong. That's the three reasons people like notes. And we're pretty good at that, right? So if you look at the comparison, that's where we line up. You earn about 2.5 or 3 times the cash flow. You have way less aggravation. I tell people you can own 55 rentals or 1,000 notes for the same level of work, right? So some people might be interested in learning more about notes. And for that, we have a school. So, if that's of interest to you, on your table is a little card, okay? And on your table is a little card with a QR code, and that's a little 2-hour masterclass. And we're just going to take real deals and break them up and show you what's possible. Yes, it's possible. I could show you how to take $1,000 and turn it into $100,000 you'll never pay tax on. Learn part of that from that gentleman right there, Quincy Long. Quincy and I were actually teaching a class together 20-something years ago when that whole idea was born. So there's lots of ways that you can learn financial modeling of how to make things really work. And we're pretty good at this. Like this is kind of our thing. So if that's of interest to you, you can come to Note School. This is a school, and this class is free, by the way. I'm just giving it to you. This is a little class that kind of gives you an idea if you like notes, and if you want to progress, we've got some ways to do it. We're not jicky. We don't use hypnosis. We don't trick people. We treat people with respect, right? So we don't. There ain't no hokey stuff at Note School. Trust me, I won't tolerate it, right? Now back to this. If we can help you with that, that's fine. And I don't know that we have time because I'm on the time, but Jim, I'll let you call the ball on it. Okay. 1 minute. Got a question?
Okay. Who's got an aha moment if you don't have a question?
Nobody had an aha moment?
Oh, right here. Hang on, I'm coming. Oh, we got two up here. Hey, Suzanne, you can go first. You're closer.
I never realized that you can make more money owning a note than renting.
Yep.
I mean, even with giving up the appreciation.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the fact is, what's happened is there's sort of a joke in the industry, right? A guy did a presentation a couple of years ago that was a data guy like Collective Genius, like he's a crazy smart dude, and the presentation was entitled "Who Drank Your Milkshake?" And he was talking about who was now buying properties that changed up the market and where it was going. And I'm saying inflation drank your milkshake. That's what happened. I didn't do it. You didn't do it. You didn't do anything wrong. But when your house is making a 4 cap and you can make an 11 if you do a note, you kind of don't need a calculator, right? And that doesn't mean that everybody liquidates every house they've got, but it certainly means that it's something to consider. And that's what we kind of talked about. I want to leave here today with some leave behind, so if this is of interest to you, we can help you get to where you want to get.
Okay. Who over here? Oh, hi. How are you?
Thank you. First off, thank you very much. I have not seen you in many years, but it was very delightful to see you today.
Thank you.
And I'd like to get a copy of that spreadsheet you mentioned. Do we just text you or something?
Right there.
Right in there? Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be creating a note. Is there some way that you can help me with that?
Right there.
All right. I was wondering, okay, because I didn't want to,
I anticipated your question.
obviously. I didn't want to go to school for it.
No
so
worries.
Thanks.
Look, I want to give my time back to Derek because I don't want to short him. You guys are awesome. I'm here at the event. I'm going to be here till probably at least by noon on Friday. So I'm going to be around. Jim, I really am grateful for you inviting me, sir. Thank you so much.
You know, for a long time, I've wanted to have Eddie come, and now you know why. Thanks for sharing.